It's football happy hour on CBS Sports HQ. I'm Chris Hassel with some news that might shock you. There's another college football bowl game tonight. Yes, get ready for the Tax Act Texas Bowl between Kansas State and a team without a scholarship quarterback. LSU likely to start a walk-on at quarterback tonight, 9 Eastern against K-State. And it's not just the quarterback room that's depleted. The Tigers only have a few dozen scholarship players available. They had, of course, all the turnover between coaching staffs. Ed Orgeron out, Brian Kelly in, though Kelly is not coaching this game. There's an interim head coach for this one. LSU, a 7-point underdog, the total 47.5. All right, Brady, Quinn, and Danny Kanell join us. Danny, is this Exhibit A in your argument that there are too many bowl games here? I got to imagine it's up there.
It's up there, but I don't want to bring any negativity here. Like, I get crushed. Brady's out there saying, I don't want to work. I'll work every day. Let's get 110 bowl games going. But this one is one of those games where you look at, but like, you know, LSU has half the team either opting out, getting ready for the bowl in the transfer portal, or, you know, with COVID issues. But I give them credit, and I've kind of thrown in the towel, Chris, because we could have easily looked at the Rose Bowl and said, oh, Ohio State doesn't want to be there. Well, 4 players we knew didn't want to be there, but guess who did? The rest of the team. So I've kind of thrown in the towel on the 42 games is too many, because I realized a lot of people make a lot of money off of them. But give me the players that do want to play. Like the players that actually do want to play, I do agree. It means something to those guys. And guys like Skylar Thompson, other seniors, players that'll never suit up again, I get this game means a lot for them. So I'm going to put aside the negativity and embrace the positive here with this game tonight.
Well done. Well done.
This is about, I mean, look, this is about capping off for 98, 99% of collegiate football players an opportunity to play one last game. And whether or not a lot of people want to buy into it, it's profitable. People still watch whether they want to admit it or not. And it gives them, I want to say, at least a little closure, at least one last opportunity to go out and do it again, unlike something they'll never be able to do the rest of their entire lives. So I love the fact this game's still going on. LSU easily could have made excuses, pulled out of this game, not even happened, whether they're COVID, due to opt-outs, even the coaching situation with Ed Orgeron being fired and now Brian Kelly waiting in the wings. And look, a lot of the issues with LSU are not necessarily a byproduct of the bowl season or this bowl game in particular. It has to do with, to me, the transfer portal, the window in which you can transfer, which is anytime you want, early signing day, which plays a period in how much these coaches then get fired and how fast they're hired then to that next job, which is one of the reasons why Brian Kelly was so, or I guess, itching to get down to LSU to try to start recruiting again for that next or following class. And then on top of it, I mean, looking at, you know, COVID and how it's impacted teams, not necessarily always the case in this particular game, but it has been throughout the course of bowl season. So look, a lot of different reasons, you know, for some of the, you know, reasons why players aren't playing. I'm just excited to watch the guys who will be there. You talked about Skylar Thompson, his 40th game he's played for Kansas State. You know, he's played a long time there. This will be his last shot at it. He's one of those veteran leader guys, but Deuce Vaughn's one of the best players in the country. If you're not excited about watching him tonight, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn, a great running back. Love watching him. Danny, you mentioned Skylar Thompson briefly, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk more about the quarterback playing in his final game for Kansas State.
Brady mentioned those 40 starts, 23 wins. You know, he's been a winner anytime he's been out there. And we always use the term like we put their bodies on the line. But this is a player who has, you know, had his share of injuries throughout his career. And he's sacrificed a lot of his body, and he's had ACL injuries. But when he's been healthy, you've seen a quarterback that can make some plays, that can hurt you with his arm, with his legs. I think he's the definition of like a really good college quarterback. I don't envision him, you know, going to the NFL and you know, crushing it, becoming a franchise quarterback, but that's not always what it's about. He's brought a lot of success to this Kansas State program, and I think it's like one of those feel-good storylines of somebody who's been out there, been a multi-year starter, played a lot of football, and brought a lot of success to this program.
Brady, how about the LSU quarterback situation without a scholarship quarterback available? They could, I mean, they technically do have a player available that's under scholarship, but they don't want to burn his red shirt. NCAA, you know, wouldn't just give him a game to write off, unfortunately. So it's probably going to start a walk-on tonight.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate rule too with bowl games is why even have that rule in place? Get rid of it, allow them to play someone of the teams in this situation, or if they just want to see for the upcoming year, in this particular case, what this guy looks like moving forward. Brad Davis, the interim head coach, was the offensive line coach there at LSU. He's going to be staying on with the staff for Brian Kelly and coaching the offensive line moving forward. So there will be some continuity in the staff. There will be some continuity on the roster, maybe not a lot of it, but you'd like to see what you have in some of those young players. So it's a little bit unfortunate as far as what to expect. I have no idea. If anyone tells you they do, they're lying to you. We know more what to expect from Kansas State with all the players that they have playing in this game. Which maybe will lead you to some of at least my betting advice in this particular case. But the bottom line is you've got, their Davis Price, their top running back, has rushed over 1,000 yards this season. He's opted out to go to the NFL. You've had other players who essentially have done so already, players who are in the transfer portal. It's a tough scenario right now for LSU fielding a team. Some of the players they do have are probably some of the top recruits, but as to what to expect, who knows at this point in time? I think you know what to expect from Kansas State, at least their style of football with all the players they have playing in this game.
I'm going to steal a line from Dave Dorn as it pertains to the Garrett Nussmeier situation. When the NCAA says that he can't play and he files for a petition so that he wouldn't burn his red shirt, the NCAA, in the words of Dave Dorn, stands for no clue at all. And he's right. This is just another one of those decisions where common sense would say, sure, let the kid play. Are we watching what's happening? They don't have a scholarship quarterback ready, but they're not. Their head's kind of buried in the sand, and they're trying to stay real rigid to the rules and make sure they try to, wield whatever power they have left, which is almost nil. And they don't have anything except the power to burn somebody's red shirt, so they're going to use it. It makes zero sense whatsoever. Brady talked about the problem with the early transfer portal or the early signing day. Max Johnson wanted to go to Texas A&M. He's already made that decision. He's committed there, or else maybe we'd be seeing him if we kind of had some sort of guidelines, which we have nothing there. And then Miles Brennan says he wants a fresh start. He's coming off of surgery. He doesn't want to play behind a mishmash team with not many weapons around him. So he wants to fresh start for next year. So now we're getting either a walk-on quarterback, or I do think maybe you'll see some creativity, more wildcat. A lot of guys, not everybody, a lot of guys at this level, wide receivers, running backs, they played quarterback in high school. So maybe you see some creativity from the offensive staff and Brad Davis, the offensive line guy. Maybe you say, you know what, we don't need to throw it that much. We'll go ahead. We'll be content with throwing it when we have to. Maybe we'll run a little bit more. We'll do some trick plays, which could provide some opportunity and some fun entertainment on the offensive side of the ball. Because I'm with Brady. I don't know what we're going to get.
Put an offensive lineman out there at quarterback. Brad Davis, the offensive line coach, is the interim coach. Draw something up for the big guy, right? We see him catch touchdowns sometimes. Why not throw one? Brian Kelly not coaching in this game, but he already has his fingerprints all over this program. He's retaining Brad Davis, who is the interim coach here. Brady, what kind of a start is Brian Kelly off to, minus the whole accent fiasco?
Well, there's that. Then there's the, after he got one of the top recruits or commits coming out for the quarterback spot, there's that awkward dancing video. So I don't know if it was the Southern accent or the awkward dancing. Either way, he's got a lot to work on in order to fit in down there at Baton Rouge. But look, if you win games, nothing else matters. And that's the reality of where this LSU program is at. If you look at the previous two head coaches, and Les Miles and Ed Orgeron, who were less accomplished than Brian Kelly before taking over LSU, they both won national championships. But here's the hard part. This is a rebuild. And they are 8th right now in the SEC in recruiting, and you can count at least 3 teams in the SEC West that are ahead of them, at least looking at the 2022 SEC rankings in recruiting. So here's the hard part: is there's high expectations at LSU, and Orgeron was escorted out after winning a national championship 2 years ago. Now maybe there's some other things that led to that off of the field that had more to do with it, but that doesn't mean that the cupboard's not bare there. Now they have a lot of resources and they can bring in some of the top recruits in future years, but it may be a tough turnaround for a coach who hasn't had to necessarily deal with playing in the toughest division in college football in the SEC West and going up against Nick Saban once a year. It's going to be a difficult task and a difficult time, I think, turning this team around into what could be their first losing season if they lose tonight since 1999? That's how successful LSU has been. So I do think they've got an opportunity to eventually win a national championship. Brian Kelly's a good coach. There's going to be talent down there. They have the resources. It just might take a little bit longer than I think people are expecting right now.
Come on. Let's do it. Let's do the gun dance that he does and get my family out there on the dance floor. It's been a rough start, and I think this is sort of Brian Kelly's welcome to the SEC, where every single thing you do is under a microscope. And I know it is at Notre Dame too, but really it's only, it's like the Notre Dame fan base, and sure they have their haters, but in the SEC, you have like 14 schools that are and 13 that are going to get ready to crush you. And sometimes it's your own fan base that you have to please. And I think this is your first glimpse of it. It's off a little bit to a rocky start for Brian Kelly. And then, after an offseason, guess who they start off with week 1? My Florida State Seminoles, which, that should be an interesting game, but I guarantee you it's a game that LSU fans are going to expect to win against the Florida State team, which has been, down the last few years. So it's going to come down to, can you win there? And the answer to that question, I think, is yes. But even then, 9 wins isn't good enough. 10 wins isn't good enough. And even for a guy like Ed Ogeron, a national championship isn't good enough. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see how his personality fits in. He's a winner. I mean, he's won everywhere he's been. But I also think there could be a rip the Band-Aid situation developing here, because these players, they've had kind of a lot of freedoms, let's just say, with Ed Ogeron, who's probably a little bit more lax with some of the discipline. And I think Brian Kelly's a disciplinarian. I think he's going to bring some structure to a program that desperately needs it. Once you get past that initial roughs patch, which I think could be rough, and he gets buy-in, because even the beginning of Notre Dame, I think some of the players in the former regime didn't love Brian Kelly to start off, and I don't think some LSU players are going to love Brian Kelly when he steps in there. Once you get past that and players do buy in, he'll be able to recruit. There's talent in the state, and I think he'll be able to win. He's won it everywhere else. Why wouldn't he win here too?
Speaking of buying in, let's buy in for tonight's game. The line is 7. LSU getting 7 points because of the lack of scholarship players and the lack of scholarship quarterbacks. Brady, we know it's a tough one to bet. If you have to take something, what is it?
Well, look, I like the under in this, in part just because Kansas State's style of play. I think they're a good, solid, sound defensive team. They like to run the football. We talked about Deuce Vaughn, who's top 10 as far as all-purpose yards in the country. You're going to see K-State get the football to him in a variety of ways. So that's part of it. But look, Skylar Thompson is coming back for what we're presuming is going to be his last start of his career. He's got very capable wide receivers. Phillip Brooks, who leads them in receiving yards. He's shifty. He's got some explosiveness. Malik Knowles, too, can make some waves, too, catching on the outside. Daniel Imatorbhebhe. So they've got some weapons if they can distribute the football. I think the hard thing is like what to expect from LSU. I mean, when this game first opened, before all of this took place, LSU was a 2.5-point favorite. Now they're a 7-point underdog. I don't know that this changes my mind too much compared to where they're at. If I had to pick a side, I guess I'd lay the 7 points here with Kansas State. I think I know more what to expect. There could be some trick plays, as Danny touched on. We've seen that a lot this bowl season. And there could be kind of a, hey, this is my opportunity. These other guys opted out. They decided to get in the transfer portal. They're not here. Well, I'm going to do the best I can with my opportunity to showcase for this new coach coming in that I'm worthy of being out there and starting and playing for this team. But I'll lay the 7 points. I think the under is the best play here, though.
Yeah, let's be honest. This is probably like gambling on preseason NFL, which is not a good idea. We don't know what we're going to get. I'm with you on the under. Deuce Vaughn, you mentioned him being one of the better players on the field tonight on either side. Great running back. Skylar Thompson does like to run it. I think they'll try to run the football. I think with Brad Davis being an offensive line coach, I think there's going to be a natural tendency to try to establish the run, especially without a scholarship quarterback. So under's probably my favorite play. And I took LSU because I'm a sucker. I just look at this and I look at the line move and I'm like, at some point there has to be value on the LSU Tigers, or where the line has kind of overcompensated here. And over a touchdown, if it gets to 7.5, probably closer to 10 is where you'd be smarter, but I don't know if it's going to get that high. But we've had almost a 10-point swing. At some time it becomes value. Probably the smartest thing to do is wait if you want to live bet this game, kind of see what it got off to, see if LSU is going to put up some fight early and then play it. Because I'll remind you guys, there was a North Carolina-South Carolina game where South Carolina had a lot of players out. They didn't, quarterback issues, a mess. They're playing Zeb Noland, or so we thought. And then we get one of the best storylines, and South Carolina doesn't even come out and cover. They actually win the game outright, and they looked like they wanted to be there. So I hope that's what we get. I hope we get a competitive game that really finishes off this bowl season with a ton of fun before the national championship game. So I'll take LSU. It's a little bit of a flyer, but I'm with Brady on the under as well. I think it'll be a lower scoring game.
Both on the under, 47.5 tonight. Texas Bowl in Houston between LSU and Kansas State. Brady and Danny coming back with us in just a second. You can hear from them and many more on the Cover 3 podcast, the latest episode previewing the national championship game and really diving into all the bowl game opt-outs that we've seen.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.